tourism. So it's all looking forward. Should I open it up? So having said all of that, we would like to really open it up to you, because our role is to hear from you. So I ask that you make your comment, ask a question. I think each person gets, what, about 3 minutes? 2 minutes to make their comments. And introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Juan Carlos Iturregui, New American Alliance. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and I just have an economic comment. Ms. Rouse mentioned all the dismal statistics from unemployment to poverty gaps, etc. And if you look at the data vis-a-vis Puerto Rico and the mainland, the economic gap has been increasing over the last 3 decades, and there's no solution in sight. And you alluded to the recession, but Puerto Rico has been experiencing an actual very pronounced economic contraction over the last 6 years. And my question to the group, Matthew from Treasury alluded to the two financial systems, and I think that's part of the challenge in Washington. They see it as something out there, but it's part of the national economy, and the Puerto Rico economy is responsible for over 300,000 jobs in the mainland. I'm wondering if there's a strategy, comprehensive economic strategy to deal with all the inequalities that 4 million U.S. citizens out there are suffering from. Thank you.
Well, just to respond to that, from the outset of the TARP program, which has been the chief vehicle through which we've invested capital in banks, institutions on the island have been eligible for that program, have applied for that program, have been a part of that program from the beginning, and we've invested $1.5 billion in island institutions. Those investments were made early on in our program. We recently announced a new capital program for community development financial institutions, and again, both banks and credit unions on the island are eligible for that program, and we've done work to make sure that that those institutions are aware of our programs and aware of the process they need to go through to apply for those programs. So we do very much see the financial system on the island as a critical part of what we are trying to do in terms of restoration of financial stability.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mr. Ramirez. Yes, I am an American born in Puerto Rico, born and raised. The reality is that the Puerto Rican economy is on bankruptcy. 80% of the jobs are in the government, and the rest is being used to pay the debt. So it's interest after interest after interest. And this budget is managed by politicians. And that's a reality of Puerto Rico, and that's a reality of the territorial thing. And that's my main concern. What do you expect a government which is on bankruptcy, a territory which is on bankruptcy for the next 10 years? They're going to get more debts and debts and debts, more employment. That's a reality. I don't know what option do you have for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred Riefko. I work for CSA Group. It's the largest engineering company in Puerto Rico. We've actually are exporting our services. We have offices from New York to Buenos Aires in that growth. And I think we're probably one of the few native companies from Puerto Rico that have been able to break the barriers of exportation. But it's been very difficult. We have issues with credit. And I must say that we lost 3 banks in Puerto Rico, but I really think we lost 6 banks, because for the next, I don't know how foreseeable future, we're going to have serious lending problems. These banks now have to integrate the 3 banks that they acquired. So credit is going to be very difficult. In that export effort, exporting and financing that export has been very difficult because Puerto Rico has a financing structure where they have withholding tax on interest. A local Puerto Rican bank can't just finance an operation, even in the U.S. So for some things we're treated the same, for some things we're treated differently. I think that's a real challenge to any sort of growth or commerce. And then tying the commerce export, you know, it's again been very difficult to try to export our services. We have the same quality of engineers, the same quality, you know, U.S. educated, bilingual. We are the perfect platform, as you say, to expand into Latin America. But I don't think it's really encouraged and actively encouraged. So, you know, I think I'd like to hear about the lending and, you know, if you study some of these barriers that are in place, even within Puerto Rico, quote-unquote, exporting to the U.S. I mean, how can we then export to Latin America if we're considering Puerto Rico an export to the U.S.?
My name is Peter Fontanes. I'm here, chair of the Puerto Rico Empire State Trade Association. I think it's really important that this committee really launches itself on the right platform. I've been concerned because I came to the economic development because I happen to be someone who believes strongly that without real economic justice, Puerto Rico's never going to advance. And in order to have economic justice, you must have what I call political sovereignty. And Puerto Rico deserves that. To try to separate the two is like going around in circles again. And I think it's very important that you begin focusing on that statement right now. If you're going to be successful, not only for the people of Puerto Rico, but also for the United States and for the Western Hemisphere, considering the changes that we've seen that's coming through a global economy. And we have to be prepared for that. I would strongly suggest, and you know, I'm not going to kid you. I happen to be a statehooder. Okay, I'm the chairman of the Mission 51, which is a national coalition for Puerto Rico statehood. But I've often said, and most people have heard me say, that if Puerto Rico decides to be an independent country and to seek sovereignty that way, I will support it 100% to make it the best country in the world. But if Puerto Rico decides to become a state, it's going to be one of the best states the United States have ever seen, and the rest of Latin America is going to see that. But we have to have sovereignty, and those are the only two alternatives. And that's the way, the model that you're trying to develop cannot be in the middle. It's got to be one or the other. It's got to be one or the other, because, again, we'll go right back to the same cycle all over again. That's all I got to say.
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Jaime Areizaga. I am the treasurer of the National Puerto Rican Coalition. I live in Virginia, and I used to be a White House fellow at the Treasury Department a couple of years ago and was able to be part of the previous panel. Very quickly, 3 points. One, I want to commend the President for bringing economic development into the agenda, because the status is an issue, the economy is the issue. Politicians and a lot of people take the status as a way out to discuss, because it's very easy to get into the whole legal and political discussions of the status issue, but it doesn't bring bread and butter to anyone in Puerto Rico. The issue is the economy, and politicians avoid dealing with the real issues of Puerto Rico by dealing with the status issue. So I'm real happy that you're having this subcommittee. I really think any future status option is going to depend on the situation of the economy of Puerto Rico. And if Puerto Rico is doing well, Puerto Rico can aspire to be anything it wants. If Puerto Rico is doing bad, it will not be able to aspire. The Puerto Rican economy will not be able to aspire to something else or to develop what they have. Number two, the mechanisms. The mechanisms are in place to develop Puerto Rico, but they haven't been used. Puerto Rico has fiscal autonomy, which means U.S. income taxes do not apply to Puerto Rico. And Puerto Rico can develop a tax structure to take advantage of that autonomy to promote capital investment and to promote jobs in Puerto Rico. Currently, the taxation in Puerto Rico taxes jobs. If you're on the payroll in Puerto Rico, then you're subject to all the tax rules of income tax. There are a lot of people in Puerto Rico in the high end and in the low end that are not on the formal economy. In the meantime, you have a property tax structure that is very low and it's locally manage. As a result, you have municipalities that have a lot of money, like Guaynabo. Guaynabo has a lot of money. They don't know what else to do with their money. But then you go to rural municipalities